Hi, folks. Welcome to today's session. We have a really exciting agenda today. We have Melia Martin, who's going to be joining us. She is an independent college coach and mentor who has been such a great joy to be having conversations with. And I think you're really going to enjoy her take on the college application process. She is a new college reader at the UC San Diego admissions office and has a lot of great tips and insights that she would like to share with us today. And if you all don't know me, my name's Tiffany Fu. I am the owner of California College and Career Consulting. And I am someone that's truly passionate about helping students get into college, understanding more about your career ambitions as well. So you can click on my profile and website in the bio below to see a little bit more about us. But we'll go ahead and jump right into having Melia join us. So welcome, Melia. We're so happy to have you here. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank
For
you.
having me.
Of course. I've been really looking forward to the session today. Maybe you can tell us in the audience a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. So about 7 years ago, decided to switch careers. My daughters are now in college, but at the time they were just starting to look at going to college, what a good fit would be. And so, just to learn more about the process, I started volunteering as a college mentor at their high school in the College and Career Center, which was just really eye-opening and fascinating as far as that I like to put in quotes, the game of getting into college and figuring out all the puzzle pieces and how to do it. And so I was trained there and had clients for a few years. And then starting this past October, I became an external reader at UC San Diego. Which has been a whole other eye-opening experience and so much fun. I joke that I'm a little too sensitive for the job because I'm such a cheerleader for all these kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so great. They definitely have to go to college.
Oh, I love that. And, a lot of students, especially the ones that I work with, they all think that, hey, you're just scanning through a lot of these applications, not spending more than like a few minutes per. But it's so great to hear on the other side that this is like you have your personal cheerleaders going through these applications. So hopefully that gives a lot of people some calmness for their anxiety when it comes to applying. So thank you so much for sharing more
Yeah,
about your
absolutely.
background. Great. So we have a first question for you. University of California. Wow. One of the stats that we just saw is almost 250,000 applications this past 2021 application timeframe. And the UC system, one application that usually you can check off all the boxes for all the different UCs that
So
you'd like to
nice that you can do that. Yeah.
yeah. And UCSD has up to what 100,000 applications. The selection process is quite competitive. And so
Yes.
can you share a little bit more about what makes the UC system so special and especially UCSD?
Yeah, I think beyond what we all know about the UC system being a world renowned education system, everything from research to on hands-on learning. I just read something that said UC San Diego sent stem cells up into space on SpaceX to kind of research how cancer cells develop up there. So beyond all of that, what I really find wonderful about the UC system is they really do have a holistic approach to their applications. I know some schools say that they do, and then you kind of wonder. UC really does. They are looking at everything from grades to rigor, to extracurriculars, to your personal interest questions, and really encouraging the reader to spend a good amount of time on each application, and not just, like you said, scan, or there's not a computer system that are automatically just bumping out applications because of GPA or whatever. We are really diving into every aspect of it and looking at that student individually, and how they will be a good fit into the school.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I went to UC Berkeley And man, I can't speak more wonderful things about the UC system overall, and the support and the strong network that you get through the UC system too. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a really special place, and I'm glad that there's all kinds of campuses too. It's not just the ones that we hear about in the news. It's a strong system across the board.
Absolutely. Great. So the next thing that we wanted to ask you here is, what is the most important thing that you're looking for usually in making these admissions decisions while you're cheerleading folks on?
Yeah, I think, to be completely blunt, we're always going to look at grades. There's no way around it. And the strength of a student's schedule. Yes, kids always should be working on their grades, taking the hardest classes that their school provides. And just really knowing that ultimately you're going to college for academics. But on top of that, with UC San Diego, we're also looking at, what have you done to serve your community? What were your extracurriculars? How are you answering those personal interest questions? Are they reinforcing what you've done in school that you've listed in sort of the where you're just putting in your stats? I volunteered at the soup kitchen. I did this. When you're getting to your personal interest questions, are you expanding on that? Getting more in depth about the experiences you had at the soup kitchen? And really just making the entire application solid in every area, or explaining why maybe it wasn't so solid in another area. I went through this hardship. COVID really impacted me, that kind of thing. Yeah. Sorry.
I know that you can go on for days about this topic. But it's good to hear that you're looking at the whole package. Obviously, grades are super important. Students are spending 4 years in high school typically. So that's a good aspect of it. But there's other ways in order to make your application more holistic.
Yes.
And so we were talking about the things you liked and what you look for. Can you share a little bit more about some common mistakes you see, just so the folks listening on here can be more aware when they are going through the process of applying to college?
Yeah. So touching base back on those personal interest questions, I think a lot of times students will start to talk about a friend or their parent. I like to use this example. Someone might say, my mom immigrated here and worked really hard. She'd worked 2 jobs. She raised me to be strong and independent. And my work ethic is so great because of her. And it really kind of, and this is just me joking around, but it kind of makes me want to admit the mom into college because I'm like, oh, your mom sounds fantastic. She really has worked very hard. And so I think sometimes, and it is in a way answering a question, like, why are you a good candidate for this school? But it isn't really getting into the nitty gritty of why you really are a good candidate. So if your mom did raise you to be, someone with a strong work ethic, go back and talk about how you've had a job all 4 years of high school, and you've put every money away for college, or you've supported your family with it, just to reinforce that this is about you. And then I also think sometimes kids will write what they think we want to hear. So they'll say, oh, I went on a mission trip and it changed my life. I built houses. And I can tell that they don't really have a passion for that, but they did it because they felt like they needed to. So I really like it when kids talk about something they are really into, because I can tell the passion comes through the words. And that could be something as simple as karate. You could be like, I'm a black belt in karate and I love it. And I'm like, well, me too. Now that I'm done reading, I'm going to go take a karate class. I've actually done that a few times where after I read an application, I'm like, I think I'm going to sign up for horseback riding. This lady really made it sound awesome.
Wow. I love that. It inspires you. See,
Yes.
folks, when you are putting your passion into the essays, Melia can really feel it and hear it. And I totally agree with a lot of my students as well. Is first, you got to really read the prompt. Make sure you go back to it, highlight the different keywords. It's asking about you. So make sure that you are, if you are going to mention others, as Melia's mentioned, circle back to yourself, give examples as well. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a hot topic, COVID-19, right? I mean, it's We are living during those times in a pandemic. We're not sure when things are going to get back to normalcy, even though it's never really been that normal for
Right.
certain folks. So with COVID-19, we see a lot of students talking about COVID-19, the application process. What is your take on this? Should they be writing about it? How should they be going about it as well? Any insights there would be great.
Yeah, I think that you think that 5 of your friends are going to say the same answer, try to pick something new. That stands for COVID as well. So if you think that everybody had a hard time with online learning, you don't really have a lot to add other than I hated being at home. I didn't like, not being able to see my friends, but I persevered and I still got good grades. That's not really telling me too much more than I could have already inferred. We all
Yeah.
didn't like being at home. I mean, some of us did, I guess. But again, I really want to know something specific to you. So if you really didn't like it, but you went outside of your comfort zone and looked for ways to support your education by taking on more online classes than even your school had to offer, because that was sort of one of the benefits of COVID. I took an online hula class. I would have never done that before, and so there was more opportunities. So if you want to talk about that, like, well, we were all stuck at home, I had more learning opportunities, then by all means. Or if you really had a hardship, if you couldn't leave and because your grandparents lived with you, or you had an immune compromised person and it really affected your community service, please touch on that. If you don't touch on it in your personal interest questions, write about it in the other section. Just say, hey, I know there was a dip in my community service, but I live with both my grandparents and that I wasn't able to leave the house. What I did instead was I wrote letters to a retirement community to cheer them up, or I made paracord bracelets for the National Guard. And I tried my best to keep going. But if it really is just like, oh, COVID was hard, I didn't like it. Yeah, I know it was.
No, totally. And you hearing this now, folks, if you're going to write about COVID-19, it's how did you handle the situation? Like oftentimes we need to display what's our problem solving skills. How are you going to
Yeah.
persevere through these tough times? Since college is going to be quite tough, very different curriculum than high school. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I know you touched upon this briefly, but how are folks able to demonstrate that they've been committed to volunteering or extracurricular work during COVID-19, since we're not able to be with each other physically?
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to be involved in your community, and it doesn't have to even be through a nonprofit organization. It really could just be, I had elderly neighbors that, weren't able, they were too afraid to go outside, or they didn't want, the regular people that come to their house coming over. So I mowed their lawns without asking. Every single week I took my lawnmower over there and safely distanced and mowed their lawn. I love learning about that kind of stuff too, because instead of just using it as an opportunity to like, oh, I can't leave, I'm going to just sit at home and watch Netflix, or, oh, my, going back to like a cliche soup kitchen example, my soup kitchen didn't allow volunteers anymore. I guess can't do it. The students that are innovative and still trying to come up with ways to serve their community really just shows me what kind of a college student and really an adult they're going to be. Because, the world is, not a fun place sometimes. And there may be multiple times that we're in different situations that we could easily use as an excuse to not continue to keep being involved. And those kids that, again, can be something very small. Maybe you were volunteering 50 hours a year, freshman and sophomore year, and now you can only volunteer 10, but at least you volunteered those 10. You still did something,
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point because even on this platform right now, recording a video, like we're sharing information. We're trying to help you all.
Yeah.
And that's something you can do too. If there's something you're passionate about, you can record it, distribute it. There's a lot of things you can do virtually to contribute to your community. So
That's what was
I love these
really nice. It
examples.
opened those doors for other, like I said, the online hula class. Who knew I would ever do that, you know?
I need to learn how to hula hoop.
Oh my
I
gosh,
never learned.
it was so fun.
That's awesome. I'll look into that. So one last question for you.
Okay.
While students are applying to colleges, they typically ask, what major are you interested in? But most students actually don't know what they're interested in.
Wow.
And obviously, like I've helped in the past with personality tests, skills tests, like possible careers. But if you're not too sure just yet, should you be declaring? Can you do undeclared? Like, what is your take and advice on this?
Yeah, it's one of those answers where I would say it depends. And this is where I would tell the student to really do their research on the school. So, for example, my younger daughter goes to a school where it's very hard to switch your major once you've been admitted. It's not impossible, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and it rarely gets approved, right? So for her, I double checked. You know what you want to major in. This is your major. If you really don't know, I would say go ahead and put that undeclared. It's not, going to hinder the process really. Some schools don't even let you declare until your sophomore year, which I think is really nice. Others, like I know at UC San Diego, you get to put a backup major. And so again, depending on the state, I know with California, there can be impacted majors. I would say do your research, but no, and I can only talk from the reader perspective. That initial look that I do on those applications, the major, I'm not taking that into account. I'm sure later on when they start building their classes and, you can only take a certain number of engineering students, that comes into play. But even using engineering as an example, if you think you want to be an engineer, but you're not sure, and your school basically is like it's impossible to switch, you don't want to be stuck taking engineering classes for 4 years if you change your mind. That's a hard major. So I really think, and this kind of goes back actually, which, I know we all tell our students, of just being true to yourself. Like, don't put something on the application that you're not passionate about, like we talked about.
Mhm.
That goes with your major. Don't, I've heard some students say, oh, I just want to get into this school because it's my dream school. So I researched the easiest major to get into, and then I'm going to switch when I get in. That's not a guarantee, first of all.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of feel bad, again, being a sensitive person, of like, well, whose spot did you take? Who did want to be that major for sure,
Mhm.
And so really just being true to yourself. And if you put undeclared, it's okay. I'm a big believer you're going to end up where you're supposed to end up, and you can always transfer if you don't.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those insights because it's very daunting
Yeah.
for some students. But you heard it here. Malia's mentioned, and I totally agree. Do your research on your schools, especially when it comes to STEM majors. It's very
Yes.
difficult to get in later unless you've met these prerequisites, which would be very difficult to even meet because sometimes classes get filled up and you need to take certain classes to get into that major.
Yep.
There's just like a lot of little different things. So always just look at your top 5 schools or however many they are, do your research and be intentional when you're choosing your majors. So thank you so much, Malia. This has been such a fun time. I really
You're very
appreciated getting all these
welcome.
insights.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you.
Of course. Great. So Malia's going to go ahead and share with me her website as well. I'll put that down in the description if you're ever interested in working with her. And please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to this page. We'll make sure we'll give more information around the college application process. And then for me, sharing more about career development tips and insights as well. And we hope to see you again. I hope everyone takes care and good luck on your college
Take
applications.
care. Oh, yes.
Bye.
Bye.